You have never felt mittens like these before. Trust me, they are soft and warm and lined on the inside with actual wool fluff. How great is that? In this video, I will show you how to make crochet thrummed mittens. Let's go.
Show me love, show me love.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Marley Bird YouTube channel. I'm Marley Bird, your by Crafty Bestie, and today I'm going to show you how to make these amazingly cozy mittens step by step, from cup to the tip and all of the fluff in between. You can grab this full pattern completely free over at marleybird.com. I've put a link right down there below. Or if you like an uninterrupted crafting experience, you could always upgrade to the ad-free printable PDF so that you have everything in front of you in one place without the distraction of any ads. So go ahead, grab that free pattern, and let's go take a look at what supplies you need for this wonderful project. Let's start off with your supplies for the Rockies Crochet Thrummed Mittens. First and foremost, you're going to need some unspun roving. Now, I really like to use this Wool of the Andes unspun roving. This is a 100% Peruvian Highland wool. It felts together really nicely as you're making your actual thrums, and it lines the inside of your mitten wonderfully. Here is the knit mitten to give you an example of how nice it is on the inside. So once you have your roving, you then want to pick up your yarn, and using a wool yarn is recommended, not mandatory, but it is recommended. And I'm using Wool of the Andes bulky weight here. Because this is the same fiber content, they pair together really well. So Wool of the Andes bulky and unspun roving. This is the Baltic Heather colorway. For our project, we will be using the Ford Heather colorway, which is what you see over here. I've already pre-made some of my thrums. Now, of course, you're going to need some stitch markers, a good pair of scissors, and then your hook. Depending on how your gauge works up, you'll need the hook that gets you the correct gauge. I'm using a size J hook here, and I will be using that throughout the entire mitten, but you can use whatever size works best for you. Along with all of these materials, make sure you have your pattern, and let's go ahead and jump in. I want to talk about is how we are actually going to make our thrums with the unspun roving. When you take your label off and you unfold this roving, it comes out actually in a really nice display. I've got it kind of bunched up here because I was messing with it, but you can see it's like a long swath of roving here, okay? And if you've never dealt with your yarn in this aspect, a staple length of wool is about 3 to 4 inches. So if I were to hold my hands really close together right here and try and pull this apart, it doesn't want to pull apart. And that's because I'm holding literally both ends of the staple length. But if I separate my hands out further than 3 to 4 inches and pull, see how it comes apart really nice and easily? So this is what we're going to do. You're going to pull apart sections, and then you're going to divide those sections until you get enough roving that's about the thickness of the yarn you're going to use. Okay, it can be a little bit thicker. And you'll see that it's about, that's probably 4 inches, if not a little bit longer. And what you do is you're going to fold over one end to the middle and fold over the other end to the middle. And then as those 2 points cross in the middle, you're going to rub them. Okay, this is going to slightly felt the two ends together with the middle. And it's this section here that actually is going to pop out on the right side of your fabric. And the tail of the thrum, this portion, I like to think of it as a butterfly. This is what goes inside of your mitten, and it works as an insulator and a nice little soft, cozy section of your mitten. But these thrums, this is an important aspect of the thrummed mittens, clearly, and you can make them beforehand or you can make them as you go. It's totally optional for you, but I will let you know that as you get working along, the last thing you want to do is stop and make another set of thrums, like consistently having to do that. If you have to do it every now and again, that's one thing, but having to do it constantly is just really annoying. Take it from my experience. So I have gone ahead and I've made up quite a few here. Now, speaking about the roving, you saw that I just took off a section right here at the top. You can also pull out just a bit of the roving about as wide as you want it. And like I said, this is like a swath of roving here, right? So you could pull it all the way down and then make it come off. So you have this really long bit and then separate this longer bit so that you can get smaller sections. Now you want to be careful, like this one right here, this would be way too small. It's way too flimsy. I like mine a little bit beefier. For these mittens, I have another pair of crochet mittens that I made the thrums a little bit smaller, but I did that on purpose for the style of those mittens. But this one, I like this yarn or this roving to be a little bit thicker. I'm also using thicker yarn, so it's just a better combination. If I were using a worsted weight yarn, clearly I would be using thinner amounts of roving, and actually like that would probably be perfect if I were using a worsted weight. Okay, so that is the first part. That's how we're going to handle this roving. And it is best to use a 100% wool roving. You absolutely can get by with a superwash roving. However, the whole aspect of superwash is that it doesn't felt, right? So when you do this process, it's really not felting anything together. So it's better to have the 100% wool roving. Okay, so that is how you're going to handle this. And I will let you know, like I've already made my complete pair of knit mittens, and this is all I have left. Like this is a whole bunch of fiber. So you can get quite a few mittens from just a little bit of fiber. Now, as I said, this is my Wool of the Andes bulky weight yarn. I did have to cake this up with a ball winder and a Swift. You could also do a hand winder, totally up to you, but that is what I'm using. And now we're going to go ahead and we will begin with the cuff of the mitten. For the cuff of this mitten, we will be using a slip stitch ribbing. You absolutely could change that up to a single crochet ribbing if you want, but I really like the structure of the slip stitch ribbing for these mittens. I want them to be nice and snug around my wrist, so that's why I've chosen that. Let's go ahead and you will chain 8 after you put your slip knot on your hook. Go ahead and chain 8. You don't know how to count your chains, you're going to look at them, look at where you have all the V's, and just count one V at a time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay. Now, as I work back across this row, I will actually end up with 7 stitches. Okay. So if I chained 8, I'm going to end up with 7. All right. So what you will do is we are going to work into the back loop here, back loop, and we're going to slip stitch all the way down. And I'm going to show you how to maintain control of your slip stitches so that way you don't accidentally get them too tight and you don't skip a stitch. When you yarn over and you pull up your yarn right here for your slip stitch, bring your hook all the way up so that the loop you pull up is now parallel to the bottom of your work. And once that is up parallel, now pull that loop through the loop on your hook. See how that allows the loop that was on your hook? It's still the same length as the total stitch that we went into. That's what we want. We don't want this to gradually get smaller and smaller and smaller and shrink. We want to keep that the same length. So you can do that by going into the back leg of the stitch, back loop of the stitch, yarn over, pull up your loop. And don't just pull it up and then immediately go through, right? Pull it up, extend up, and then pull through. Okay? This will help you maintain consistent tension throughout the entire slip stitch ribbing. You will find that you are not going to have your ribbing pull in too much in one section. It will just look so much better. Just trust me on this. I've done so much slip stitch ribbing for just plain ribbing. I've done it for the brim of hats where I have like the most amazing, like a bill of a hat. It's just amazing. You can check out the newsboy hat, but I use this a lot. So I know what I'm talking about here. Now, as I said, you're going to have 7 slip stitches. So if we're looking at the top here, if we're counting these V's, we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so I know I've used all of my stitches now because I have 7. Once again, I'm going to chain 1 and turn. And I know there are people who don't do this chain 1 and turn, they just turn and then continue on with the slip stitches. And if you're somebody who likes to do that, you can. I'm a chain 1 and turn kind of girl. All right, so I chain 1 and turn. And here's where it can get a little bit tricky at the beginning. As I'm looking here, it looks like I have V's right here as they're facing me, right? Right? That's what it looks like. But really, the top of my stitch is right here. Okay, it's kind of like it's receded towards the back. So when I want to go into the back loop of this, I want to come back here and go through the loop back here. Now, if you struggle to know where that is, I'm going to give you a trick. So I'm turning back to where I was before I turned. Okay, I'm where I was before I turned. What I want you to do is take a marker and literally put your marker into what would be the front loop of the stitch you just finished, right? So like we chained 1, so that was our chain 1. And this would be the front loop, because that front loop is when we turn is going to be the back loop that we want to go into. So we've chained 1. So when I turn, even though I'm looking at this, I'm like, oh, there's my back loop. It's right there. I know it's not, right? Because I've marked it. So I can kind of flip this up and be like, oh, there it is. So I put my hook in there, take my marker out, yarn over, pull up a loop, make sure it's parallel, and then pull through. Now that I've established that I'm going to be going along that line, I don't have to mark another stitch, right? I can just be like, all right, so I go to the next one, yarn over, pull up, make sure it's parallel, and pull through. And really, you'll just kind of have this trickiness of knowing where the back loop is here at the start. I think as you get going, I think it becomes more and more obvious. But at the beginning, it can always be a little bit tricky. Having said that, if you're struggling with this a little bit, give it a couple of tries. Rip it out, try again, be patient with yourself. And just remember, if it's a little bit loose, that is better than a little bit tight. Okay, you want to make sure it's a little bit loose versus a little bit tight. Always come up parallel, pull through. You can count again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you know you've gotten all of them. Chain 1. Let's go ahead and put our marker right here into that front loop again of the last one we did. It's the front loop of the last one we did. Now I'm going to turn. Again, you turn, you see all of these like V's right here. That's what we want to face us when we have our ribbing. So the loop we want to go into is back here. So having that marked will help you identify where you're supposed to be putting your hook. And I want to also mention, I do not want you to do a yarn under. You should be doing a yarn over. So the yarn should be coming over top of your hook and pulling up that loop. Make sure it's parallel and pull through. Let's do that again. So I go in, yarn over my hook, pull up a loop, make sure it's parallel, my hook is parallel, and pull through. Okay, take your time with this. This is one of those things you don't want to go super fast. It will feel like it's tedious and taking forever, but trust me, it's the bulky weight yarn and this bigger hook, it's not going to take as long as you think, but just be patient and don't forget to count your stitches as you work along, because it's very easy to accidentally forget a stitch at the end. If you want to use markers at the end to keep track of, the last stitch of the rows, you could do that if you want. Or you can do just what I said. You can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I can chain 1. I could put my marker here. You won't have to do this all the time, or you can. It's totally, it's no big deal. Markers are there to help you. They are a tool. I'm turning. I know that's where I need to put my hook. Yarn over, pull up a loop, and pull through. Okay? And keep going. You're going to make your ribbing the distance written in the pattern. And once you've reached that number for the size you are making, join me back here. We're going to join our ribbing in the round. So it's going to go from being flat to being in the round. And we're going to transition to essentially the palm of the hand and the thumb gusset. All right. Isn't that cool? I love the way this looks. It really looks like knitting, and it gives a really nice elastic ribbing. All right, let's keep going. When your ribbing reaches the distance written in the pattern or the number of rows written in the pattern, you want to make sure that you have ended after a wrong side, so that way when you turn your work, you have a right side facing you. And if you don't know if it's the right side or wrong side, your tail will be on the left side if you are right-handed. If you're left-handed, it'll be on the right side. So I've added a marker here so that I know this is the right side, okay? And I have turned my work, and so what I want to do is I want to take my beginning edge here, and I'm going to fold it up. I'm going to fold it up here so that it matches up with the row that I'm working on, okay? And what I want to do is work slip stitches all the way down this row that I'm working on and join it to the chain edge with the open chain that I began with, okay? So I am not beginning with the chain one here, okay? I don't need to begin with the chain one. I'm going to just have the chain on my hook. I'm going to go into the back loop of the row I'm on, and then I go into the edge of the row I started with, okay? Make sure that's nice and snug. Yarn over, pull through your beginning edge, pull through the back leg of the row you're on, make sure things are parallel, then pull through the stitch on your hook, and repeat. Going through all of them. And we're going to just join this all the way down. You'll join every single open stitch from your chain edge and every single stitch from your working row. So for me, it'd be 7 stitches total. We're going to get down to where our tail is on the next row. I'm going to get down here, go all the way to the edge, as close to the edge as you can get. And boom. So as we look at this, I'm going to extend that up so it doesn't go anywhere. You can see it looks virtually seamless, okay? This ribbing just looks really good. It's nice and just works just beautiful all the way around, okay? Now, I don't need this marker anymore, so I'm going to take it off. Now that we have our ribbing complete, it's time for us to add stitches along this edge of the ribbing so that way we can create the body of our mitten. I like to either add stitches as one stitch in the end of every single row I did until I get the correct stitch count, or I will add 2 stitches into what I call like the gutter of the ribbing. So you know how you have this like knit looking stitch, that V right there, and then right next to it, it looks like it's kind of a valley or a gutter of the ribbing. That's where I like to put the stitches for this mitten. So I'm going to put 2 stitches there. We begin with our chain 1. And then I am going to slightly spread apart my ribbing, and you can see right here, that's the gutter I'm talking about. I'm going to stick my hook right into there and create 2 stitches. Now, after I create the first one, I will pause for a minute and place my stitch marker into the stitch I just completed. And if you don't know where the top is, it's the one that looks like it's a V behind the loop on your hook. Okay, so I'm just going to put that stitch there. And then I go into this exact same hole and create another single crochet. I will skip this row that looks like a row of knits. I'm going to go to the next, which is like the gully again, the gutter, and I'm going to do 2 stitches there. And I will add stitches like this all the way around until I get to the stitch count I need for the size I am making. So you need to do the exact same thing. Don't overthink this. It's more important that you get the correct stitch count versus where you put your hook. Of course, it will look best if you are consistent with where you put your hook, but we really need to make sure we have the correct stitch counts, okay? So that's very, very important. When you get to the end of the row, we are going to join with an invisible join, and we will be using this join throughout the entire project. So right where my marker is, that's where I want to do my invisible join. So what I will do here is I'm going to take my hook out of the loop. I'll remove my marker. I'm going to take my hook and I'm going to go from the back of my work through that stitch where my marker was so that my hook is now facing me. Take that loop that was on my hook, place it onto the hook now. And now I will pull that loop through that stitch. Okay, see that? We did our invisible join. You can go ahead and adjust where you're holding your yarn so the yarn is behind your hook, and we're ready to go on to the next round. Okay, so that is your setup round. Take a minute here and count all of your stitches to make sure you have the correct stitch count, because we need that stitch count for the thrumming pattern to actually work. Now it's time to move on to those thrums. As we jump into our thrumming pattern, I do want to mention that you want to have a pile of thrums ready to go, because you will be super annoyed if you have to stop and create a thrum each time you need to add one. One thing I do want to mention is after we do that invisible join and we jump to the next round, I do not want you to chain one. We are not going to chain one before the start of each round. We're going to immediately go into our single crochet. So right here, I'm going to go into the same stitch that I did the invisible join into and work a single crochet. And once I finish that single crochet, just like before, I'm going to grab a stitch marker and place that into the top of that stitch. Okay, that will help us know where the first stitch of our round is. So add a stitch marker to the top of that stitch. Now, following along with the pattern, you'll see that the next stitch is actually a thrum stitch. So here is how you create the crochet thrum. Place your hook into the next stitch and grab yourself a thrum you've already made and wrap that thrum, the middle of it, around your hook. Okay. Now I want you to go ahead and yarn over your hook with your working yarn. We are going to pull both that working yarn and the thrum through this stitch. So hold the thrum a little bit snug and pull all of that up. See how the working yarn is to the left of our thrum? You can think of this as we have a loop, a thrum, and a loop. What I want you to do now is I want you to pull this loop here through this thrum. So we're going to pull the loop that's at the front of our hook through the actual thrum. And that's it. Okay, just like that. You can kind of give those a little tug if you want. Don't pull them too tight, otherwise it'll like really bury it in there. But that's how we want to add our thrum. And now we want to complete our single crochet. So we yarn over and draw through 2. Okay. Continue on with our pattern, which for this, it's go ahead and single crochet 3. We will add a thrum every 4th stitch. And in your 4th one, it's time to do the thrum again. So put your hook into the next stitch, grab your thrum and wrap it around your hook. Okay. I like to hold my thrum like I'm holding it with my fingers over here to kind of keep it tight around my hook. Yarn over your hook. Make sure it's a yarn over, not a yarn under. And we're going to pull that yarn over and the thrum through the stitch. Okay, so now they're both up there. Now I only want to pull over that front loop. I want to pull that through my thrum. So now I have 2 loops on my hook. Yarn over and draw through 2 to complete your single crochet. And then you carry on. You'll notice that the tails of your thrum are going to the inside of your mitten. So let's go to the next stitch, work our single crochet over these 3 stitches, and we'll do it again. You're going to do this all the way around, okay? Stick your hook in, grab your thrum, and wrap it around your hook. Yarn over your hook, pull that yarn over and the thrum through that stitch. Okay, can you see it right there? And then we want to pull that front loop there. We want to pull that through the thrum. So pull it through. You'll see it kind of pulls up there. Have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and draw through 2. Now, there's a lot of different ways to add thrums to crochet. The very first time I created a crochet thrummed mitten back in 2000, I think it was 2008, I added my thrums slightly different and I had a slightly different stitch pattern here. It doesn't make it so that one way is better than another. It's just a variation of the same technique of what we're going for here, right? We want all of the ends of our thrums on the inside of our work, and we want to make sure that our thrums aren't going to pull out, right? So we just kind of make it so that all of these stitches and thrums just look really good, right? They're all going to look really good. Woo! Slippery little sucker. And we're just going to keep on going. So I'm going to keep on going around, working just like this until I get back to the beginning, where I will join with my invisible join once again. When you get to the start of the round, you'll end with 2 single crochets. And like I said, we want to do that invisible join. So I'm going to remove my marker, but I want to make sure I know exactly where my marker was. Take my hook, going from behind, push my hook through that stitch, coming towards me, place my loop back onto my marker, make sure it's nice and snug, and then pull that through. Okay, that gives us our invisible join. Now we can move on to the next round, which the next round we're going to work just a plain single crochet round. So remember, I do not want you to chain one. Do not do a chain one. Simply go into the same stitch that you joined into, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and draw through 2. Grab your marker, put it into the top of that stitch you just finished, and then we're going to single crochet all the way around. And because of the way we pulled that loop through the thrums, our thrums won't be getting in the way of any of our stitches as we work around. You will be able just to work under both of the loops of the stitch, just like you normally would, without any issues. You can see there I just came up to 1, right? So we're going to work all the way around here until we get back to the start of the round, and we will do the invisible join. As a side note here, if you have not taken the time to count your stitches after that previous round, when you're working your single crochets on this round, just silently count the stitches and make sure you have the correct stitch count. Like I said, get to the end of the round, work your invisible join. Pretty easy to do. You're going to get really familiar with this join. And now that we are back to what I'm going to call an odd number row, if this was row 1, this is row 2, we're back to another thrumming row. So for this one, we want our thrums to be in between these 2 thrums. So you'll notice that the counts between where we add a thrum, like where we did before, and this one are different. Again, do not chain 1. Start off with a single crochet in the first 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. Now in this stitch here, we're going to add a thrum. So I'm going to put my hook into there and we add a thrum just like we did before. So it's just going to place our thrums in a slightly different place than before. So pull that through, then pull through the thrum, or pull the first loop through the thrum, and then finish off with your single crochet. And then you will work 3 stitches and then do it again. And you're going to do this all the way around. Now the last stitch of this round is a thrum stitch. So make sure you do complete that thrum stitch at the very end of the round. Oops, I pulled it through 2 on accident there. Just pull that back. Yarn over, draw through 2, there we go. And then I'm going to join with my invisible join. Notice I forgot to put my marker in there this time around, but I can see where the start of my round is right here. So let's get my hook into there, grab my loop, and pull that through, okay? All right, so we have 2 full rounds of thrumming. And what's great about this is this allows it so that we have the cuff and then a little bit of our cushiony thrums before we jump into our thumb gusset. I think I mentioned previously, but we will be adding thrums on every other round. So because this one was a thrum round, the following round will be a plain single crochet round. So let's go ahead and continue the next round just with plain single crochets. At the end of my round, and I'm doing my invisible join yet again. And I'm ready to go on to the next round. It is time for us to do some thrumming and create the thumb gusset. So we are going to put our thumb gusset in between 2 of these thrums. So we are going to essentially increase on this side and this side, sort of so that the thumb gusset looks like this, and we have this sort of triangle pocket for our thumb to go into. So for this pattern, we will continue on working our pattern just like we've been doing, but when the instructions tell you to do 2 stitches into 1 stitch instead of 1, that's where we're going to begin our thumb gusset. I'm going to show you how that is done. So I am doing my first stitch. My next stitch is actually a thrum stitch because this is the row I am on. So let's add our thrum. You're going to get very familiar with this, so you will get comfortable with how to add those thrums as you're going around. Get that a little bit of a tug there. And then we do 1 and 2 and 3, and then I want to add another thrum, and then it's after this one that we will begin our thumb gusset. And our thumb gusset has a different like way that we are going to thrum as far as like a different sequence. So you will follow along with the pattern as it's written for your thumb gusset thrums. But right here, we are not going to add 1 here. We're going to put 2 single crochets into this next stitch. So do 1, and then I want you to put a marker in it. Okay, do 1 stitch and put a marker in it. Do your second stitch into there. So now we've put 2 single crochets into 1. Put 1 single crochet into the next stitch and 2 single crochets in the following. So do 1 and then do your second one. And in the second one, let's put a marker in it. Okay, so now I've marked the first increase I did and the last increase I did. Okay, now I'm jumping back into my thrum mitten pattern, which means this is a thrum stitch. So after I've done those increases, this is a thrum stitch. So I jump back into my pattern, and this is all written in your pattern so you can follow along. And then continue on. So we'll continue all the way around, following our thrumming pattern until we get back to the beginning where we will join with our invisible join once again. So go ahead and work on yours, and I'll do the same. When you get to the end of the round, once again, complete with your invisible join. I know you're going to get sick of me saying that, but it's important. And then what we will do is work around even, just like we've been doing before. Okay, you're going to work around even, and you'll put 1 single crochet into each of these stitches here. And when we work a single crochet into this one, we're going to move that marker up. So let's get over there. So I've just done my join. So this is my following round. I start with my single crochet in that same stitch. Place my marker into the top of that stitch. And now I'm going to work all the way around just with my single crochets. And when I get to these gusset stitches, these are the stitches that we have marked, we're going to treat those just as normal stitches right now. And until the pattern tells us to, increase in these marked stitches, we're just going to do just a regular stitch in there. So I'm going to do my 1 stitch into that. I'm just moving the marker up so that I know where it is, right? And then put all of the stitches over to the next marker, and I will move that marker up. All right. Now, let's talk for a second because you don't need me to sit here and just single crochet around again. What I want you to understand is that on this round, we're doing just plain single crochets and we moved our markers up. On the following round, we will also do another round of thrumming, but there will not be any increases. We're just going to move our markers up. Same thing for the following round after that. When we do another increase round, and for all of the increases rounds following this one, where that marker is, you're going to put 2 stitches there and 2 stitches there and then move the marker up, okay? So we're gradually creating this increase here for our thumb gusset. And I think if you follow along with the written instructions, you'll have no problem understanding how this has worked now that you understand how to do those 2 stitches into 1 and you have your markers in the correct place. And that means that even for those of you who are anti-markers, I highly recommend marking those 2 stitches so that you can easily identify where your increases are going to go. And the first couple increases that we will do are separated out by 4 rows. And then, depending on what size you're making, you could be working the third increase in the 4th row, or you could be working it in the second row, like every other row. It all depends on the size you are making, okay? So make sure you're following along with the pattern, and you're going to work all of these thumb gusset stitches, so all of those stitches for the thumb gusset, until we get the correct number between our markers that we need before we can continue on with the body of the mitten, which will cover the all this space from here all the way up to the top of our fingers. All right, so you've got this. From this point forward, you know exactly what you're doing, okay? So for all the sizes, we are not doing an increase round on this round that I'm getting ready to do, but it is a thrumming round. So you want to follow along with the thrumming instructions, both for the thumb area, the area between those markers, and for the area outside of the markers, this hand area, okay? So if I get here, I extend up, work my single crochet. That's my first stitch. I'm going to mark it yet again. And then I will single crochet 2 more, 1 and 2. Get myself some more yarn here. And then I have a thrum. I have a thrum here. Hopefully by this point you can see that the thrumming is getting a little bit quicker as you work along. And I have 1 and 2, and now I'm to my marker. So I'm going to follow along with the thrumming pattern that's written here for the thumb area, which means I'm going to put a thrum right here in the middle. Okay, so first things first, I put a single crochet into that first one that's marked, move my marker up, always move your marker up, okay, once you complete the stitch in there. And then I'll do single crochet in the next stitch. The next one, I do a thrum on my thumb. And then a single and a single. Move my marker up. Notice no increase, right? Just moving my marker up. And now I continue on with the thrumming pattern as it's written here. So for this particular row, it's 2 single crochets, so 1 and 2. And then I do another thrum. And I just keep going, okay? Hopefully this makes sense to you and you just follow along with the pattern. So as long as you're working those increases, when the pattern is telling you to work those increases for the size you are making, you should be a-okay. We're just adding those thrums. Once you have reached the total number of stitches that you need for your thumb, that's where you're going to go ahead and work in pattern over until you get to 1 stitch before your thumb marker. So let me get over to the 1 stitch before my thumb marker, which is actually another thrum stitch. So I'm going to work my thrum stitch here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain 3. And this chain 3 is going to take the place of the original 3 stitches that I used to begin this thumb gusset. Okay, so I have finished that. I'm going to skip all of the stitches from marker to marker. Okay, I'm going to skip all of those stitches and I'm going to chain 3. So 1, 2, and 3. If you don't want to lose those chains when it's time to work back into them, you could always put a marker into each one. Yes, I know that's like a lot of markers going on, but I'm just saying. So I'm going to put 1 marker into 1 chain, 1 marker into the next. Let me undo this. 1 marker into the next, and 1 marker into last. Now you don't have to do this, but sometimes this helps you know where those are. Do not remove these markers, okay? That's going to let you know where the stitch is for you when it's time to do the thumb. So you want to keep that marker in place. All right, so I chained 3. I skip all of those stitches between those markers and I come over here to this stitch. And this stitch is another thrummed stitch, right? In my pattern, that's another thrum. So I want to make sure I'm maintaining my pattern. So I work my thrum here. And what will happen is now that I have chained 3, I will be 3 stitches shy from my original stitch count I had after I did my ribbing down here. But after the next row where I put single crochets into each of those chains we just marked, I'll be back to my original stitch count. Okay, so let me get those 3 done, and then I'm at another thrum. Let me get to the end of this round. You do the same, and then we can see how to create stitches into those chains. Just like always, when you get to the end of the round, do your invisible join, and then you're going to jump in to the next row, which is just a plain row. So you can add your marker, keep your marker in place if that's really helpful to you. I know it's helpful to me. And then we're going to work over to those chain stitches. Okay, so here are the chain stitches. Okay, so I am going to take each of these markers out one by one. I took the first marker out. I can see the first chain. I'm literally going to work into the chain just like I would if it were a foundation chain. So I'm just putting my hook directly into the chain, and I'm going to create a single crochet. Do the same thing in the next chain. Put my hook into the chain and create a single crochet. And then the last one, put my hook into the chain and create a single crochet. Okay. Carry on. It's right over here, right? Like, where's the next one? It's right here. And keep going. When you get to the end of this round, go ahead and count your stitches. You should be back to the same stitch count that you started when you were doing those stitches from the ribbing. Okay, you should be back to that original stitch count. And once you confirm you're back to your original stitch count, you will carry on in the thrumming pattern. So your established thrumming pattern, you know, put in a thrum every 4th stitch, yada, yada, yada. By this point, you've probably figured that all out. And you're going to keep doing that until your mitten is just about to the tip of your fingers, because the final few rounds on your mitten are just going to be closing the top of the mitten. It doesn't add height to your mitten necessarily. So you want your mittens to be nearly the same height as the top of your longest finger. Okay, but I'm going to get to the end of this round here because I want to show you that at this point you should be able to put your mitten on and give it a try. And it's a nice thing to do. You could automatically start to see how warm it is, how big and fluffy it is, because you might think to yourself, gosh, that ribbing looks so tiny compared to how big and fluffy the mitten is. And yeah, you're absolutely right. It does look tiny, but it stretches out so that way it will fit nice and snug around your wrist. And the mitten portion, because we have to accommodate all that fluff in there, you know, it's got to be a little bit bigger than what your normal hand would be because there's so much fluff on the inside. So even though it might look big on the hand, I promise you it's going to look really great. So I'm going to put my marker in that loop so it doesn't go anywhere and just attach it to my mitten here, because now look at that. You see that? All that fluff. So that is my hand. Here is my thumb. Okay, here is my thumb, and my thumb has all those stitches between the marker. And then when I go back to pick up the thumb, I'll pick up stitches here too. I'll make stitches on the other side of that chain. But it's at this point, I mean, I could put this on the right or the left, either one. And you can see, oh, that is so soft. That is so cool at this point. It's super neat. Again, remember, you can just pull those in if they look like they're just poking out a little bit too much. Just pull them in a little bit. They aren't going to go anywhere. My thumb, I have a nice thumb gusset there. This here is right, those chains are right there between my thumb and my finger. And you can see my ribbing. It's nice and snug around my wrist. I mean, this is a perfect fit. This is a perfect fit. And this is an adult average size. This is the 8-inch circumference hand because that's what I wear. And this is awesome. So now I'm just going to continue on working the thrumming pattern just like I've been doing, but I'm going to work it until it gets up to here, because once we get up to here, we're going to do a rapid decrease with single crochet 2 togethers to bring it closed, and it'll close up really quickly. So you want this to be nearly like to the top, if not nearly to the top of that. And then we'll put that together. So what I want you to do is go ahead and continue on adding your thrums every other round and then trying to maintain your sequence best you can. Okay, that's what you're going to do. So fun. How is your mitten looking? It's pretty cool, isn't it? How big and cushy it is. Once your mitten has reached the top of your fingers, just like I mentioned, right there at the top of your fingers, that's when you're going to begin to decrease. And you want to make sure that you have finished after the round with your thrums. Okay, you want to finish after that round with your thrums, because the next round we're going to do rapid decreases. Okay, so we're going to decrease every single stitch all the way around. So what we will do in order to do that is work a single crochet 2 together. So we will begin by working a single crochet 2 together in the very first stitch. So just like before, do not yarn over, just insert your hook and then pull up a loop, and then insert your hook into the next stitch over, yarn over and pull up a loop. So you have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and draw through all 3 loops. Okay, so that is your single crochet 2 together. You can place your marker once again in the top of that stitch and you have it. Now, as we go around here, we want these stitches to get tighter. So we want to keep this loop on our hook nice and tight. Keep it the same size as your hook. So go to the next stitch over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. Make sure those are the same size. Insert your hook into the next stitch over, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through all 3 of those. Okay, it's really important you keep that first loop the size of your hook, because that's what that one is right there. That's what the top of the stitch is. And we want that to be nice and tight. Okay, go to the next one, yarn over, pull up a loop, go to the next one, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through all 3. And you can see here, as I draw through, I'm turning my hook like with the hook part pointing down and then pulling through. I'm also using my hand to pull these stitches down to kind of give them a stretch, and it's easier to pull my hook through. Go in, pull up a loop, go in, pull up a loop, yarn over. So I'm pulling down underneath the hook, and then I'm turning my hook upside down so that the hook portion is pointing down and it's easier to get through. Do this all the way around. When you get to the very end, you will go ahead and join with your invisible join, just like before. So I'm going to remove the marker, extend that up, place my hook underneath that first stitch. There we go. So now you have half the number of stitches that you had previously, right? And this is still too large to pull together. So we do another round, and the next round obviously is a thrum round. So what we will do here is we will go ahead and put a thrum through every other stitch, just to really make sure that the top of our mitten is nice and padded. So we will go ahead and I'm going to work a single crochet in the first one, and then I'm going to do my thrum in the next one. Okay. And then I will do a single crochet in the next and a thrum in the next. Again, you want to make sure that you're keeping these stitches nice and snug. So make sure you're really keeping that loop on your hook, the first loop on your hook, before you go into the stitch. Keep that nice and tight. Keep that stitch right there, that loop. You want to keep it the same size as your hook, okay? Keep it the same size as your hook. When you get back to the start, go ahead and join, and then we're going to do another round of rapid decreases. So we will go ahead and work our first decrease just like we did before. Pull those together, and then do that again all the way around, okay? When you get back to the beginning, we are going to go ahead and fasten this off, but we want to make sure we leave ourselves a nice long tail because we're going to thread this tail through the top of our stitches and pull them together like a drawstring, okay? So let's go ahead. We're going to fasten this off just by pulling that all the way through. Okay, so this is the top of your mitten. Looks just like that. Looks really nice. But now we're going to grab our tapestry needle right here, and we're going to go through all of these stitches and pull them together like a drawstring. So right up here at the top, we're going to go underneath the front loop of each of these stitches and pull your yarn through. Okay. When you get back to the beginning, give this a nice pull. It'll pull close the top of your mitten. You can take your tail here and weave it through a little bit more if you want, just to kind of secure it just a little bit more. And then we're going to thread this tail down the top of the mitten here, right into the inside, and we will weave that in. Now, if I turn this inside out, you can see just how incredibly fluffy the inside of the mitten is. I mean, doesn't that just make you want to put your hand in there and just be super warm? So you pull this up just like so. Make sure this is nice and snug, and then you want to weave in your tail on the inside of your work because we don't want the top of this mitten to come undone, right? Like that's not any fun. So go ahead and weave in your tail, making sure everything is nice and secure. And do not let your tapestry needle here, don't let it go to the other side, like the right side of your work. Okay, it's all done here on the inside of your work. And as you do this, once everything is as secure as you think it should be, you can then take your scissors and cut your tail. Okay, look at that. Look how fluffy that is. Oh my goodness, that is so fluffy. Now, right here, that is our thumb, and that's what we're going to tackle next. So we will turn this back right side out. Look at the top of our mitten. It looks really nice, right? And all of our thrums are nice and in place, and it's pretty awesome. So now the next thing we have to do is work some stitches here around our thumb opening, continue on with thrumming on our thumb, and then we'll be able to call these complete. So let's move on to the thumb. Working on the thumb scares some people because they really can't understand how it's going to work out, but we're going to keep it very simple. You have a set number of stitches between this marker and this marker that we worked up when we were doing our thumb gusset, right? And then we did our chain 3 and then built 3 stitches on top of those chains right there to continue on for the body of our mitten. What we are going to do is work around all of these stitches that are from marker to marker. We're also going to create 3 stitches on the opposite side of our chain right here. But The one stitch that we do over here, we're going to work it as a single crochet two together with our first stitch here to close a gap. And then the stitch over here of the three, we're going to work it as a single crochet two together with this one over here to close the gap. Okay, so we will start off where we have all of the stitches you had for your thumb plus 3. And then when we work the next round, we're going to decrease one stitch over here and one stitch over here by working those two together and these two together, and it's going to close up a gap. Okay, so it's really not that difficult. You do want to notice that we ended on a non-thrumming round. So our very first round here is going to be a thrum round, okay? And so you want to try and maintain the sequence as best you can. You can follow along. I mean, you can quickly see right here, there's a thrum, there's a thrum. We're going to put one just like right here. And so then you could count over 3 and then put a 4th. You don't have to overthink this. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. Okay, let's begin. We are going to start off by joining with a slip stitch right here to the center of those chain 3s that we did to bridge the gap between those markers. Okay, so let's join with a slip stitch. Again, I want you to leave a nice longish tail so that way if you need to close any holes later, that yarn will be there and available for you to do that. It's just a good little handy little trick. All right, so I've joined with my slip stitch, and now I'm going to go ahead and do a single crochet in this first stitch. Okay. Now the next chain over, right? The next chain over, I am going to work a single crochet 2 together. So I'm going to put my hook into that chain, yarn over and pull up a loop. And then I'm going to jump over here where my marked stitch is, insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and draw through all 3. Okay, so I've essentially closed that gap. All right, before I forget, I do want to go ahead and mark that first single crochet so that I know where the start of my round is. Now I can remove this one, and I want to continue on working around my thumb here, and I'm going to add thrums as necessary. Okay, so I'm going to add one somewhere around here. So let's just go 1 and 2. This looks like it would go right here. So if we counted that as 1, then 1, 2, 3, at the single crochet 2 together as 1, we could count that as 3 there, and let's add 1 here. I think that kind of helps stay in sequence a little bit. Yeah, that looks good. And then we'll do 3, 1, 2, and 3. Just want to try and maintain your thrumming sequence. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. You guys don't stress over this at all. This is just one of those things of continue with your thrumming pattern, however it looks best on your thumb, because you do want to make sure you have thrums in your thumb. All right, and you know that we add a thrum every 4th stitch, right? Okay, so now we're going to single crochet, and when we get up here to this marked stitch there, we're going to single crochet to that together to the last chain over there. Okay, so I'm going to do 1 and 2. And then we're going to go into this marked stitch here. Before I do that, I'm going to tuck this tail in just so it's out of the way. So we're going to go into the marked stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. Go ahead and remove that marker. And now we come over here, and we're going to go to the last chain, yarn over, pull up a loop. So you have 3 loops on your hook, right? Yarn over and draw through all 3. Okay. Whew. Back to the beginning. We want to do our invisible join. Maybe I can get my marker out. And then the next round is just a plain single crochet round. And then you just continue on working your thumb, just like this, a single crochet round, a thrum round, a single crochet round, a thrum round, until your thumb measures again, right to about the tip of your actual thumb. Okay. Like we're going to then do a rapid decrease. So it'll close it together right on top of the thumb. So you definitely want to make sure that you have the thumb completely covered before you do that rapid decrease, because it's just going to pull those sides in and just close it up on you. Okay, let's go around here. And this part will go really quickly because it's just a few stitches here, right? We're just working with a few stitches as we go around. And if you're just like, oh, I don't really want to do an invisible join here on the thumb, I just want to do like a slip stitch join as normal, you could do that. It'd be fine. It's, you know, you're looking at the inside of the thumb area. So you should be okay to do that if you wanted to. But I like to keep things as consistent as possible when I'm doing items like this. So I do recommend doing the invisible join. And I'm back to the start. Do my join. Kind of got small here. My first part got real tiny. Hold on, I'm not through it correctly. And there we go. So here we are. Pull through, and I'm ready to go to the next round. Right? I'm ready to go to the next round. So I want to make sure whatever the next round is, that I'm adding my thrums where I think they're necessary. So one over here, one right there, and one over here, right? Remember what I said, there's lots of different ways to add thrums. So if you are thinking you might want to try a different way, maybe on the next pair, you absolutely could do that. There's lots of fun ways to do this. And one more. I think that's good. All right, let's do our join. I'm just going to keep on going here, everybody. You do the same thing on your end. And when we get to the top of our thumb, we're going to work those single crochet 2 togethers all the way around and finish it off, okay? Because you want to make your thumb pretty good. Oh, it's coming out really nice. All right, keep working on yours. Okay, when your thumb is the proper distance, so remember you want it to be at the top of your thumb itself, I would pause for a second after finishing a thrum round and stick your finger in the thumb and kind of just spread out those thrums on the inside, okay? Just to make it so that way you can easily get your thumb in there. You see that? We're just taking the moment while the top's not on there to easily just spread things out. Okay. And we finished on a thrum round. So now we're just going to do a round of rapid decreases. So single crochet 2 together all the way around, and then pull it together just like you did the top of the mitten. And I'm going to remind you, you want to make sure that you're really keeping that loop on your hook nice and snug as you're creating these single crochet 2 togethers. Okay. You want to keep that nice and snug. It'll pull those stitches together even neater. Once all those are done, just like before, you want to leave yourself a nice length of tail. We're going to pull that through. Thread your tail onto your tapestry needle. And we're going to go around here again, just going through those front loops. Just going to thread it through all of those front loops and pull the top of this thumb together like a drawstring. All right, I think that's all of them. I'm going to give this a nice pull. If you have a little bit that sticks out right there, that's okay. We can take care of that. You just go slightly around again and grab anything that is a little bit loose. We can tack it down. Let's see here. That's the top of it. So now we're going to make sure we put Put your needle down the center of your thumb. And once again, we're going to turn the whole thing inside out. And then you want to make sure you're turning your thumb inside out also. So put your finger there, push your thumb in so it's inverted. You'll see the tapestry needle start to pop through. It wants to go through all of the fiber, which is not a bad thing, but we want to weave in our end first, so we don't want to mess with that yet. So as we pull that up, so there is the top of our thumb. We have our end pulled through. We want to, once again, make sure this is really secure. So we're going to weave this in up here, making sure that we are not letting the needle go through to the right side. You just really want to just cinch it together nice and closed over here. It's okay to split some of the yarn fibers and stuff as you're putting it in. If you have a chenille needle and you want to use your chenille needle, that is always a bonus as well. But then once everything is really secured where you feel like it's good right here, I like to actually find the side of my thumb and just thread my yarn down the side of my thumb just to give myself some more tail woven in for this. You could do this for the top of your mitten too. It's not necessary, but I do like to do that on the thumbs. I do that on thumbs and fingers and all that, and just pull it down and make sure it's real good. And then I just pop up a little bit. There we go. Feel like that's pretty good. Give that a snip. Now we do have this tail down here that if we have any holes, we could close up. I don't have any holes. There are no holes there. That decrease that we did there really closed up a hole that we might have had. So you can take this tail and just seam together, not seam together, you're not seaming together, just weave in your ends. Weave in your end down here, just to get it nice and secure. Again, you just want to make sure this is secure. And because I am using a 100% wool, like all of this fiber will gradually sort of, kind of join together. The more you wear and the more friction is on the fiber itself, the thrums and the yarn, because they're both 100% wool, and they'll really begin to insulate. And so that's one of the beautiful things about using thrums with crochet, because crochet naturally has these holes in it. And so having the thrums to really kind of insulate the mitten makes it exceptionally beneficial. So, I didn't cut the whole thing there. All right. So here we are. Oh, one last end. Let's tuck in this one last end while we're here. This was the end for our cuff. And I would just weave this in. You can see I have a little bit of a hole there, so I'm just going to close that up with my tail. That's the beautiful thing about having tails. You can close up any unsightly pieces that you might find. And check it out. Oh my gosh, look how big and fluffy that is. That is so cool. I love it. So let's turn it right side out. I'm going to start off by pushing the thumb in. Pushing my thumb in. Now let's turn this right side out. Oh boy. Oh, so cool. This is so cool. And what's great is wool is naturally like repellent, water repellent. So this is just going to make your hands not only warm, but it's going to keep them nice and dry. I mean, look how great that looks. That is a perfect little mitten right there, if I say so myself. So I'm going to put my hand in it. Oh my goodness. Okay, so you got to kind of mush around your thrums in the thumb area. I think I pulled some in there. Got to pull them out a little bit. Oh, look how great that looks. Oh, it is so warm. It is so soft. It just looks really awesome. Oh, I love that. I love that. It looks so fantastic. Oh my God. And there you have it. Isn't this adorable? I can't even express to you how nice and warm this is. The fit is secure. The thumb is not too big. It fits just right. And there are thrums all the way around the thumb. So it's just as warm as the rest of the mitten. It is big and fluffy, and it is nice and secure down here. I know that when you're doing the ribbing, it looks like it's really narrow and like it's not going to fit, but you want it to be nice and snug. So it looks really great. And now you're ready to go and make the other mitten, which is done the exact same way. You're all done with your Rockies Thrummed Crochet Mittens. Hope you loved this as much as I loved teaching you. And as you're out and about wearing your thrummed mittens, make sure you share with me on social media. Use hashtag MarleyBird or hashtag MMMDI. I'll talk to you later. Bye. This is so adorable.
Show me love.